any sponsor paper in, did you?
Mm.
Can you remember?
Probably not.
So you're supposed to look at the camera too, T. T.
Okay, everyone. Welcome to our 6th episode of the Zones All Access and our second Pit Pass. Tonight I have Anthony, most people known as Tater, Petty, and his driver T. They're in the garage tonight. Thanks for coming down, guys. First, we have to mention our premier partners, Whitaker Insurance, J&S Concrete Pumping, Value RX, Tazewell, Tennessee, Walker to Walker Construction, Hearthside Bank, Stay and Play Doggy Daycare, Boarding, and more. Also, special thanks to all of our marketing partners. We have a great team. Without them, we couldn't do what we do. And First Century Bank for providing our communications. All right. Once again, thanks for coming down, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you a little bit first. Been friends all our lives. Think a lot about you. But let's start. Did you play sports as a child?
I did. I was kind of involved in a lot of the different sports, baseball, basketball. Never was really much into football that much as a young child. More up in later in school, we ventured toward that and tried that. And just wasn't me.
Wasn't you? Okay. Out of all the sports that you played, what was your favorite? And just not even as a league, but part-time sports.
Was probably baseball. I enjoyed baseball and played a lot of softball within the church league stuff back when that was popular 20, 25 year ago stuff.
Yes.
Some of that was some fun times as far as that. But baseball's by far my favorite. I had my balls lost last night.
Oh yeah, that was awful. What caused you to get the motorsports urge?
Well, I'd kind of always been around motorsports from, gosh, as long as I can remember. My dad and Jim Arnwine's father were best friends and grew up a lot around Jim, that shop, their, racing. I can remember being small, 5, 6-year-old, and just wanting to go over there. And the race car still be sitting on the trailer, and I'd want to get in and drive. I remember that vividly as a childhood growing up. Just was always around that. Always been Tazewell Speedway. It's just kind of been, years ago. You didn't have a whole lot to do in Tazewell, Claiborne County.
Still don't.
And Saturday nights is a big part. Tazewell Speedway and still is. Traditions carried on for years and years and years.
Okay, what kind of driver were you as a kart driver?
Well, as a kart driver, started early in probably 16, 17-year-old in the mid-late 80s. Worked my way up and had a couple of state championships under my belt in the early 90s. And worked at that and then kind of got more out of the driving role and into
I'm kind of wanting to know more about the style. Was you aggressive?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you kind of get that when you're young, and the older you get, you learn more reality of cause and effect, I guess, to say. But yeah, and that's one thing about this sport. There's a fine line, finesse between aggressive and competitive, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, now let's go on to the wins and championships.
Well, I can remember 1991, 1992. I had the Tennessee State Championship, and that was a big competitive year I can remember racing with a lot of racers. Mark Douglas, Mark Reisner, Dwayne Douglas, some of those guys that have really moved up, Rusty Webb, some of those guys are pretty big in late model stuff now. I think Mark Douglas maybe had retired from that, but he was up and coming young late model driver here in East Tennessee, and I remember competing with him a lot. That was a big accomplishment then for to be small funded, self funded like I was, to be able to compete with some of those guys and those teams.
What are you most proud of?
Probably most proud of just being able to look back over the years of the sport and see the young people that I've mentored and helped bring up in this sport.
That's good. Did you run any full size cars?
Never did.
Never did.
Brother Doc was big into that, and Steve Francis is a real good close friend of mine, and I've had several opportunities to get in a car. But I resisted that because I know what that racing itch does, and I knew my pocketbook couldn't afford that. So I tried to steer clear of that. I didn't even know that I ever got in a car and packed the racetrack.
Yeah. Okay. I know you helped Jim Arnwine a lot. You helped him field his car. What was that like?
That was probably a good learning curve as far as knowledge, because Jim had been racing. When late model racing then was like street stock racing now, and then he kind of developed into what probably in the late 80s is what developed into the modern day tube chassis car that there is. I can remember the first car that Jim got came from a guy named Don Cox up out of Hazard, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first ones that ever come into this area. And then it was a CJ Rayburn car. CJ was the inventor of all that stuff, and knowledge is that. And Jim really knew and understood what it took to make that car work. And over the years, you kind of learn that stuff. A lot of these guys now have these scales that they scale these cars out on. It's a digital readout that tells you all this information. Well, the way I learned was with Jim Arline on grain scales, and you weigh each wheel and you do the math and you figure that percentage stuff out like that. So it's good learning the basics of stuff, and Jim was great with knowledge.
Well, what else translated to the cars that you learned from Jim?
Well, a lot of that did. There's a lot of basics that work, fundamental stuff, car staggers, different things like that, how that affects things. The big thing with a car, you have a suspension that you work with that controls what each weight does, but a go-kart is rigid and you don't have that. So your suspension relies on your four tires. And that was a lot to learn to accomplish what you wanted to do. That you want this weight to transfer to this tire, and if you were in a car, you would soften this spring to achieve that. So you don't have that on a go-kart, but then you have to think, okay, if I want that weight to transfer here, so I have to soften that. So how do I accomplish that? Well, that's with air pressure. You soften with air pressure or tire compound, and that gets into a whole big thing, because go-karting chemical treatment is legal. We can do unlimited things with those tires with chemical treatment that these race car guys cannot do. So
can't do it.
That's a big thing to learn, is what you can do with that tire to make the go-kart do what you want it to do with the weight transfers and stuff like that. So,
okay, T, what sports are you into right now?
I do racing most of the time, and I do some basketball on the weekends. Mostly, sometimes on Fridays.
You're Little League Baseball now?
I don't do baseball, I do basketball.
Okay. What's your favorite sport?
Racing.
Racing. When did you tell your parents that you wanted to try it, or did they say, do you want to try it? Well, how did that happen?
It was more so, do you want to try it? And so my dad got me a Champ buggy that I started off in. I raced it once, and I didn't. I told him to sell it. I hated it. I don't like to be.
I heard that story. And how did you grow to like it?
Well, there's different kinds of go-karts. So
Mhm.
we got a flat cart and then there's the cage cart.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I ever tried a flat cart was in White Whites. And I took a couple laps on it and I liked it pretty well.
Okay, what you remember your first time out there? What was it like? Was it scary? Was it fun? A little bit of both?
Well, it was scary because I don't like to be I can't be strapped in. I don't like to be confined. I like to be able to like move. I don't want to be just held strapped.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
I just don't like
So it was scary, but when you got out there and felt the little horsepower and the speed, did you like it then?
I wasn't really scared as much of that. It was more like so just being confined. I was just like, no, I ain't doing this.
Okay, are you getting a little bit more braver now? Is it more fun than it was then?
Yeah, a whole lot.
A whole lot.
Which with these flat carts that I'm doing now, we don't have straps at all. Like it's the seat and then the steering wheel. That's what's holding you in.
Think I'd like the other car. All right. Have you won yet, and how did it feel?
I have won a few times. It's a lot of fun, and like it's fun, but you're really excited and hyped up whenever you when you get your first win. It's
Yeah.
like so it's really exciting.
Did you hold that flag up really high?
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I would too. Okay. What does he do well on the track?
He has a real good focus. I have a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
We have a photographer that works with our team a lot, and she's real good. And she gets a lot of pictures that I can see of him driving. And it amazes me that I can zoom in and see the focus that he has. And the one thing that we've tried to teach him is not to drive off your nose, to drive to look out here and anticipate what's coming. And I think that focus is really what he's on, to be able to see out there and know where he's at on the racetrack to hit his marks. And it was when we first started this adventure, like he said, he didn't like the champ card at all. And he said, I don't want to do this. So we sold that, and before they got it loaded up and gone with it, he said, Dad, can we buy a flat cart? Well, go ask your mama, because you know how mamas are with that.
Yeah.
Well, while he's gone to ask mama about a flat cart, I'm on the phone, got one on the way. So, but it was night and day difference from taking him out of that buggy strapped in to putting him in the flat cart. And we probably went 6, 7, 8 times. And it was a struggle, but he made progress every time we went. And then after he won that first race, that's when it really started clicking to him how to be competitive and get that itch. And he's done real well with that. And then this year we had to move up because of his age, so that put us in a different bracket that was completely different than what he was used to. Probably turning the racetrack 2 to 3 seconds faster per lap than what he was accustomed to. So that's been a big learning curve, and we've won a couple of races this year at that level, and been real competitive wherever we've been. So we're getting there, and then we've got a couple more years at this age, and then we move up again. So
what do you think you do well on the racetrack?
I think I do good with like getting up in the back stretch and like getting it up close, and then like kind of coming back down.
That's kind of like where you talked to Avery the other night, that Tater's telling her low through the corners and high down the straightaways. So
yep, I get it. What does it need to improve on?
Probably making those decisions before it's a split second decision. There's a lot of times that we have a faster piece running second or third, and it goes back to that aggressiveness. At this competition level we're at now, where we're traveling and doing this stuff, we're running with some good competition, so you don't have really 3 or 4 laps to get a game plan together, you've got to make that decision quick, and you've got to get aggressive to apply your decision. We've missed a few positions by not being aggressive to make that, and just waiting too late to make that move when we should have went ahead and done that. But that 10 years old, we're getting.
What do you think you need to improve on?
Probably, I think kind of the same thing. I need to improve on getting, like, not just letting somebody kind of get past me. I need to kind of keep them back.
Okay. T, what would you want to say to somebody, a friend of yours or somebody that wants to try racing go-karts?
You need to try, like, both kinds, and you need to kind of venture out of where you are.
Same question.
Well, that's kind of where my specialty comes in, because that's where I've been helping a lot of these young people. I kind of got out of go-karting for years and years and years, and that's when I was helping Jim Arnwine and Anthony. And a good friend of mine, Will Brock, called me. I need some help with a go-kart. And I just flat told him I am not interested, because I've been away from it for a couple of years. Well, can you just come up here and help us with the go-kart? You don't have to go to the track, but come and help. So I went and helped them, and they had some problems. We got them lined out. Before you know it, I'm at the racetrack with Tyler Brock, and we put 2 state championships under our belt with Tyler.
Yeah.
Kind of done that. Raced, had a few different people driving for me with some stuff, and then kind of had got back into the late model with Doc. That's when we kind of got involved pretty heavy there with that stuff. And Jonathan had called me needing some help, and I didn't know where they were at with their program, because they, like I said, they just went and bought some stuff, and went to the track and tried it, and then they were ready to up their game. And so I went on board helping them, and we've all been together since then. And Aiden and Avery, both, man, Aiden, I just can't say enough about him, and Tyler Brock, both, man. Both of those kids just apply what you tell them on the racetrack. I mean, Tyler Brock, I could tell him go out there and run over the flagman, and he'd figure out how to get up there on the flagman stand. He was just had that ability. It's like that kid had eyes all around his head, and he could accomplish what I was telling him. And Aiden has got to that point to where he's really good with that, and can give me feedback on what that go-kart's doing. That's something where we struggle a little. He's not got to that point to feel that feel and tell me what that go-kart's doing. It's still more or less me relying on watching and having to adapt what I'm seeing happen. But we get to that point, and when he gets that feel, that's when the program will really take off. It's where you communicate and you be able to build on that. So,
you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, Tater, anybody you want to thank for helping you out get started in karting and to where you're at now?
I do. It kind of, Facebook post this week kind of brought a little bit of reality back to me. Was Danny Caleb's. When I first started racing, Dennis Whitaker, Danny Caleb's, and all those guys, they were big. And Danny was a great guy that would, whatever you needed, Danny could make happen. And I can remember the first race that I ever went to over Bulls Gap. I was probably 16, 17-year-old, real young, spunky, and went out on the racetrack, and I'm driving. I thought I'm doing pretty good. And every time I get ready to go in the corner, bam! I mean, somebody is just tearing my bumper off. So I come off this racetrack, and I'm ready to fight. And I asked Danny, I said, where is that SOB that is killing me back there? Danny's eating a hot dog, and I thought he was literally going to choke on this hot dog, laughing at me. He said, well, I don't know where the SOB is, but the B is right over there. And she takes this helmet off, and the hair falls down, and I feel about this big. So you get humbled real quick in this sport. So, but Danny was a great guy. Dennis Whitaker's super smart beyond belief. Taught me a lot about engines, how they work, building engines, and so forth like that. Different ones in the go-karting. That's two that really stand out. And a good friend of mine is Badger Rush, a really miss him a lot too was I don't know that me and Badger was more like partners in crime at the go kart track. So we were two peas in a pod. Wherever one went, the other went. We didn't really compete a whole lot against each other, but we were hand in hand partners in racing for years and years and years. So some of those people really go back, but it's really sad about Dan passing away and everything, but lived a good life. And I remember going to the track with him and Mooney and Wayne, and those guys. They were little bitty guys, littler than teas, but a lot of fun times back then because back at that point they were probably 30 to 35 people right here in Claiborne County that was racing go-karts, and it was like a family. We take off, we go to Kentucky together, different places. We all just kind of a family that would go.
Okay. Did you race much up the river?
I did. I kind of started at Bulls Gap.
What was it like?
It was different. It was definitely a different racetrack. You could be there in some of the prettiest skies at night, and the next thing you know, the fog rolls in up that river. And you literally can't see from one end of that racetrack to the other. And then the owner of the track, Bill Cheek, was meticulous about his racetrack. I don't know that I've ever raced on a smoother racetrack than what River Hill was, week in and week out. It was never bad. And to my knowledge, the only thing I know the man had to work with was a farm tractor. But now he'd come up with a system that he pumped water right out of that river to take care of that track. And I remember well that wooden fence down that riverside, man. That's kind of like the old wall at Atomic Speedway coming off turn 4. If you ain't careful, it would bite you. But had a lot of good times at River Hill back in the day.
Why do you think there's no track locally to race at? Is it just insurance liability?
No, you kind of really have to look at it at a standpoint that somebody really has to love this sport to do that, because go-kart racing is not a spectator sport. It's more participant. It's not a lot of spectators that come in just to watch that. Really, the only ones you have coming to watch is family members, friends, grandmas, papas, and it's not a moneymaker for the time and effort you have to put into it. So I think that's a lot why that there's no more than they are. And property anymore is just hard to find, and if you don't have that availability, it's just hard to put a track in. And there's a few that's been here, like Ashway Speedway's our home racetrack. That track's been in business every year since the 40s. So even as a car track, now a go-kart track, it's just the tradition there that's carried on. It's not feasible for you to have to go in and build that track and invest that money when there's no return investment coming back to you.
I get you. T, there's anybody that you want to thank for helping you along the way?
Mostly my dad. Dre Maddox helped me a lot with understanding how to go in and come out without just completely wrecking.
Yeah.
So that's yeah.
You want to thank your parents?
Yeah, my mom and my dad.
All right. What do you think that the sport of karting is doing well now, and what should they be doing more?
The thing we're doing well, let's say on the local, regional level, we've kind of involved a lot of these kids. We kind of put a deal together at Ashway Speedway a couple of years ago that we called the East Tennessee Racers Clinic. And we really promoted that hard, and even actually had it on some of the news channels that we were doing this, and invited kids in the community that had never, knew go-kart racing existed to come in, and we could teach them, kind of what was going on, and made it available for some of them to be able to actually get in a go-kart and make some laps around the racetrack. And I think we had close to probably 100 participants in that, and that has really boosted our junior racers, kids racers on a regional level here in East Tennessee, and probably looking at some point maybe doing another one of those, to keep the involvement, because the expense of this is it's not faint apart. I mean, you can kind of get some money tied up, and it's expensive traveling around doing the racing. So, but I think that's one thing we're doing is we're getting a lot of the kids involved, and it's a good thing. Like my daughter Ashley, she's engaged to be married, and she's marrying a good kid, good racer. Met him at the racetrack, and I'm fortunate for that because she's been at the racetrack with me since she was that size. So, growing up at the racetrack, even, she's 21-year-old now, I know where she's at on Saturday nights, and that's
good.
a huge comfort to do that.
Okay, let's talk about your sponsors. Who's helping you now? Name some of them if you want to.
We MRC Transportation. That's Blake DeBusk.
Yeah.
325 Speed Cuts. That's Dre Maddox. Ace Performance Engineering. That's Hunter Adams. Traz Customs.
Daytona One.
Yeah, Daytona One. They're actually who helps us a lot with our lubricants and stuff.
That's kind of a new deal we picked up this year. Had a good friend, Coach Ron Phillips, that was kind of involved with our late model program with Doc and the Courtney boys and stuff. Had kind of got involved with this Daytona, and they wanted me to try some of their product for go-kart racing. Well, it's not designed for that, so it wasn't really the product that was suitable for what we was doing, and kind of got hooked up with the CEO of that company, Buck Parker. And man, what knowledge this guy has. He's actually inducted into the NASA Hall of Fame for a lubricant that he developed for NASA. So it's a big deal for us, and I'd worked exclusively with him this year on testing some stuff, and he's developed a karting oil that we just released at the Knoxville show this year. That's when it catches on, it's going to be a hit because I actually done the dyno testing on that oil, and the numbers are phenomenal. What just changing a lubricant in the engine does, that the years of research, development, dollars that I've spent, other guys have spent countless trying to gain 3/4 of a horsepower when he can do it in a lubricant is huge. And they've come on board. They've got a lot of good product, especially for the late model guys, fluids and stuff like that. But a lot of their product we're using in go-karting and stuff. It kind of blew his mind, and I was using the degreaser, kind of like a little secret out of the bag, using the degreaser for a tire prep. And he kind of, you're doing what? Yeah. So, but that kind of got Buck's wheels rolling with the karting, and they've been huge asset to us coming on board. And Blake the bus can't say enough about Blake. Blake's lifelong friend's been good to us through the years racing. He's really stepped up, come on, helping our program a lot, and a lot of the support from some of the other guys we get. We're pretty fortunate to have the support that we do. Jonathan Weaver, can't thank him enough. All the logistics, transport, and stuff that we do. It's just a good combination. Without those guys, we couldn't do what we do.
Yeah.
But
got a lot of good people. A lot of those names you mentioned, work harders. They know what they're doing, and know what you're talking about, and the needs you have. Would you like to say anything else about karting, or to your people that you're with all the time at the racetrack?
Well, it's
To sum up, wrap it up.
it's kind of rolling in here to March. Season starts Saturday. We're traveling down to Chatsworth, Georgia for a big event down there. Looking forward to that. That's our first big event of the year, and I'm ready to get kicked off and get going, get back with racing family and stuff. A lot of good friends. I've made friends all over the Eastern United States stuff doing this stuff. A lot of good friends. Ready to get back to be involved with those people.
All right. T, you ready to go?
Yeah, it's exciting at the beginning, but at the end, you're just like, well, that was actually really fast because it like you race every weekend, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's like once or twice a year, and you're just like, what?
Well, before we go, I've got a real question for you here. What was one mistake you made on the racetrack that you just went, oh my goodness, what have I just done?
That was probably whenever I was coming out of a turn and I messed it up pretty badly. I was in, I think, second or third place. There's probably 7 of us, and I get messed up through that turn, and the other carts are just coming, and I get hit and spun around, and then there's like a water truck on the side, and and there's somebody coming through, and I just get absolutely plowed and destroyed. It like I flip over.
That's
It's pretty bad.
that was actually the incident that he actually got upside down. I'm sure you've seen some of those photos and stuff that on our social media. But that was, he's talking about that little friend, the first go kart that he ever got in. White's the one that plowed him and put him upside down. So that's kind of one of those things you learn. It's one of those on track incidents. Good friends, great people that we race with week in, week out. It's just one of those things that happen. And
The same question to you. What was your just, oh gosh moment?
well, fortunately, in that moment, I didn't get to see that because he talked in reference to that water truck, and where I'm standing, I don't have a visual of him at that point because the water truck is in between us. But I did hear it, and I thought, and then all my buddies are over here at the fence hollering, you got to go, he's upside down. And I'm thinking, what happened? Because he just spun out. Next thing I know, he's upside down. That's kind of one of those parent reality checks. Oh no, But as far as myself, the oh no moment, I can remember one time when I was racing with the Brocks, we decided we was going to put the big motor on the champ buggies. They was having a big motor race down at Ashway, and it was on a champ buggy, and we had the open modified on the champ buggy down there running. And I can remember starting, and I was just, I didn't know I was as far ahead of everybody as I thought I was, and my neck brace come off. So the caution come out. Next thing I know, I'm black flagged and put in the back because I lost the safety piece. That's the rule. That's part of it. That's okay. But I can remember coming off turn 4, coming down that front straightaway to take that green flag. That motor had so much horsepower that I remember getting on it. And the next thing I know, oh no, I've done turned around and I'm backwards going down the front straightaway, taking all the tires out. So that's one of those moments I realized I'd made a mistake. The first mistake I made is when Will Brock talked me into building that engine and putting Tyler Brock on that thing, him at 16-year-old and us pushing 40 horsepower out of an engine. If I'd have drove that go-kart with that motor on it before that kid got on it, I'd have blew it up. It's that scary. I mean, when you think about rolling off into a corner on a go-kart, at his age, 52, 54 mile an hour is fast.
Yes.
But when you roll off in that corner at 90 mile an hour, that's moving.
All right, guys, I appreciate you coming down. And
thank you for having us, Alan.
All right. Once again, I have to mention my premier partners, Whitaker Insurance, J&S Concrete Pumping, Value RX, Tazewell, Tennessee, Walker and Walker Construction, Heartside Bank, Stay and Play Doggy Daycare, Boarding, Grooming, and more. And also a huge thanks to our team of marketing partners. Without those partners and their generosity, we could not do what we do. And of course, thank you to First Century Bank for providing our communications. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next time. God bless. Good job, guys.
Thank you.